Alright, it's Devlog Thursday, and I've finally made enough progress on this game after fall break, or during fall break, that I finally have enough to show you. I mean, pretty consistently for the last several weeks, there's been small changes. Well, they range from pretty small to pretty big, but most of them have been ones that, you wouldn't really be able to see the effects of. Like some subtle changes in how movement works, how certain animations work, an overhaul of the animation system that, again, really just affects how it functions on my end rather than on the player's end. And also, graphically, the game has been updated to where everything is built out of 8x8 tiles, that is, like, the terrain, like, for the ground and the UI, but not the characters, they're just still normal sprites. And that's just to make it a little bit more authentic to the Super Nintendo, and it actually makes making certain graphics a lot faster. It makes it a much faster process when I'm just placing tiles instead of drawing it all individually. And so that is basically the bulk of changes that I have made that you wouldn't be able to notice otherwise. So I'll go ahead and get right into the changes that you can see. I don't know if you noticed that, but the transition wipe or fade or whatever that's called, you may notice that it's a lot smoother, and that's because instead of being an 8-frame sprite animation, it's actually a 16-frame tile animation. It's the tiles of the UI like slowly filling in to be black and then unfilling to be unblack. But of course you also see that this is a completely new area. It looks completely different than all the other ones, which have all just been like the same grass with like a cross path in the middle of them, except for the forest, which is just grass and trees. It's going to be more interesting in the future, but this new area is the best thing. The best way I could explain it is like as the equivalent of like a dungeon in any given Legend of Zelda game, and that's what I'm technically considering it, but it will not be explicitly, these dungeons will not be explicitly called dungeons. They're just not really going to be referred to as anything other than the locations in which you will find the various ingredients for the potion that you're searching for. Anyway, so there to my left, when you first enter this area, there's water, and to the right, there's what appears to be a very small hole. Now, Molly is unique in her ability to be able to swim. I gave her a little swimming animation, so she can cross these bodies of water. You may remember that Max could follow you around for a brief time to help you with the fox chase, and you may remember in the previous devlog that I mentioned that you would be recruiting Mouse, and you can do that, but I'm not going to go through the entire story to do that. Instead, I'm going to press a very handy key on my keyboard, that is the 9 key, and Mouse is just here with me. Developer features, kind of like the ability to teleport. So yeah, Mouse is with me, and I can interact with him in the same way that I would be able to interact with Max, but with the exception being that I can actually switch to Mouse, and I am now controlling him, and he can teleport now, but not the companion character. And Mouse, of course, cannot go in water. He just can't. Maybe either he can't swim, or he doesn't like to swim. Maybe he's afraid of water or something. I don't know. Just for whatever reason, Mouse can't swim. And we're just not going to judge him for that. But one thing that Mouse can do that Molly can't is figure out whatever this thing is for. Molly has commented that she does not think she can fit in there, so she's obviously putting forth the idea of trying to go through it. However, our friend Mouse... Did I say Bouse? Okay, our friend Mouse can go through this hole. You just interact with it the same way you interact with everything and everyone else, which is by pressing A while looking at it. And he crawls in there, and there's a secret tunnel system. And you can see that Mouse has got a crawling animation. It's basically his equivalent of Molly's swimming animation. I worked really hard on this animation, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think it's really cute. That's what this whole game is supposed to be. Anyway, so obviously, this is the one game mechanic that Mouse has that is exclusive to him, where Molly has being able to swim. Oh yeah, and of course you can switch between them when they're in their respective obstacles or whatever. that is something that I just finished up this morning before I went to class. It was actually pretty simple. Just disable the entire rest of the world that's not the tunnel when you're in the tunnel, and do literally the inverse. Disable only the tunnel when you switch to a character that's not in the tunnel. Actually pretty simple, unlike very many other things. Anyway, you may have noticed that mouse is standing right in front of this log. If we go up here, this is obviously a path that is it's not continuous. There's a giant pit of death. Well, I mean, we can only assume it's a pit of death. We can't really test that because we can't get into it, but let's just assume just to be safe. But anyway, this is a log as well. So there are 2 logs here. Now, I don't know, maybe you could potentially connect the dots. Maybe, hopefully. And interact with the logs and push them to form a new path. Just like a good old Legend of Zelda puzzle. Except the ones in The Legend of Zelda are usually a little bit more interesting. But hey, you gotta start somewhere. Anyway, so now we have completed this path that now both characters can use. And this is basically our way to progress to the rest of the quote-unquote dungeon, like heavy air quotes, even though I have both hands on a controller. And now we are to the next thing. It's another puzzle involving logs. So this is obviously like the mechanic of this dungeon, like how in The Legend of Zelda, there's always these mechanics to each dungeon, and usually you find some item that you can use specifically for that mechanic when it's found in other places or other dungeons, and that's literally the whole foundation of those games. And it's going to be something kind of similar here, but I'm not sure if I really want items, since the focus is really the ingredients you're getting, so maybe it's just, solving puzzles. Like I said, I'm trying to come up with the best game mechanics before I start working on the game. And the best game mechanics I came up with was this little, each character having an exclusive ability that grants them certain access to certain parts of the world, I guess. And that, along with puzzles, would be the whole game. Or the whole gameplay, I should say. And so I decided to test that, and I came up, with the mechanics of Molly can only be in water, and Mouse can only be in really tiny tunnels that are underground. And I tried that out, and I was satisfied with that, so I figured out a way to combine that with another mechanic that could be used to block off an area, and I came up with... Come on, Mouse, you can do it. I came up with, these logs that you would push over these gaps to be able to cross them. And I thought, well, these logs, since they have the ability to... Since they're solid, they could have the ability to be obstacles in their own right. And so that's what I did. I made a puzzle based entirely on that concept of these logs being obstacles that can be moved. And you see these, sand trap things, and hopefully that'll, indicate to you, unless you don't figure it out and you just use trial and error, that, once you push these logs into these pits, they can't be moved. And Mouse is desperately trying to get over here. So what we notice is that by pushing this log out of the way to get into this area, we have blocked... Sorry about that. We have blocked access to this other little path, which is a little bit concerning. But fear not, I have designed this puzzle to make sure that you cannot do anything or any series of actions that would make you trapped. And the main way I did that is by making this puzzle so easy that it's honestly kind of embarrassing. You just push this log, and then, yeah. The goal is this particular little tunnel or whatever. The other one just loops around to connect to the one on the left. But yeah, that's basically the gist of what this game is going to be like, as far as I can tell. This is a good typical example of the kind of thing you might see in this game. And for that reason, once I get the other things that I desperately need to implement, like the ingredients list, actual ingredients to collect, and also the actual beginning of the story, I think I will have the kind of content that could constitute a demo. I could actually put this game on Game Jolt or whatever, and you could actually try it out for yourself. since I don't really have much extended periods of time to work on this game except for when there's a break, and since the next break for me is going to be Thanksgiving break, I would say, and also since I've got big school projects that I'm working on, I would say that I'm thinking saying that 2020 would if I'm being optimistic, before the end of this year there will be a demo, but if not, then whatever you want to call it, Christmas, winter, December break would be the third time that I'd get a chance to work on this game for extended periods of time. So yeah, optimistic date is, let's say, sometime by the end of November, early December. Less optimistic time, sometime in January 2021. I mean, I could potentially, like, if I had enough free time, just probably get this done before the end of the month, but seeing that it's actually the 22nd, I'm not so sure about that. But anyway, that's all I have to show, and thanks for watching. Bye.